Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Hi, guys. So let me just do a very, very brief intro and excuse this, these are my notes. They're not really extensive, so you don't have to be worried. So thank you for coming and joining us here in this humble abode that we are renting for the day. Let me just briefly introduce this whole thing. So this is a HydraDX and Basilisk meetup, and we're going to talk about also another thing that we're cooking up. But just very briefly, we have this very sophisticated method of submitting Q&As. So if you can try to scan that one or go to sly.do, and you can type HydraDX. I think if you go one more slide. Yeah, if you, it says HydraDX 1. If you tap it on the website, you should get the sort of Q&A, or you can submit questions through there. And then we're gonna have 3 blocks. And after each block, we're gonna have a Q&A session. Within the blocks, so there will be more speakers. Just to give you the program for tonight. So we're gonna start with Crowdloans and Liquidity bootstrapping pools. Now we're gonna introduce Angular. Now we're gonna have a Q&A session with the guys here on stage, and I'll be going through the questions and censoring them and picking the right ones. But you can upvote, obviously. So then we're gonna have a third talk on liquidity mining and oracles. Then we're gonna have another Q&A for that particular presentation with a break following right after that, so we can get some coffee. And we're gonna end with the third block is gonna be on UI, so we'll be able to show you what Basilisk will actually look like. And then we're gonna end very strong with HydraDX vision and Q&A after that. So after that, you can stay here and we can mingle. There will be food and stuff. So that's the program. So I think without further ado, we can go to the first presentation. And our 2 mad genius, Jakub and then Lumir, will talk about LBPs and Crowdloans. So hope you enjoyed.
Hello everyone, I'm Jakub, co-founder of Basilisk and HydraDX. We would like to talk about Crowdloans. As by Crowdloans, it's just starting everything, even as it was like a crazy journey. So I will tell you about like Snack way, how he get a parachain slot. So many people are asking like why we are even like competing to get a slot. So or why we are even like building our own application specific chain. And the reason is pretty simple, that we would like to really focus as much as possible on the use case, which is pretty important, which is like value transfers and values exchanging, and we don't want to do like any compromises about like serving users the best possible experience, but also prices. So, and as doing application specific chain isn't something like really special, we realized like almost all of them, they have like issues or like big hurdles about like building their own validator set, because most of them, they are, as you can know, proof of stake chains. So what if we can skip this part, which is actually like super important? But what if someone did it instead of us and very well? And actually Polkadot and Kusama relay chains, they are very nicely decentralized in comparison with 2 other proof of stake chains, as Polkadot did ICO in 2017, where they distributed like half of the network. So, and Kusama currently is secured by 900 validators. So we realized that it would be much easier and much more effective, instead of like trying to replicate their success, to just rent all of these validators. And also like opening, like building bridges between different chains with different trust assumptions is much easier to do it basically in bundle, which is provided by Relay Chain as the like main narrative for Polkadot and Kusama and parachain systems, is basically shared security. So all these chains, all these networks who are specialized for something can trust each other, basically in one block. So the crowd loan is basically the best way how you can get parachain slot, except of case that you are Gavin Wood or other like co-founders. So, but obviously it's impossible for us or for any way to pay for the slot by yourself or ourselves. But nice thing about Crowdloan is that much bigger community who already has some asset like DOT or KSM, they can rent it for you. But they are not risking their capital, so it's like very nice twist on ICOs, and we can run away with these funds, but the community still have some like opportunity costs on it, so they are looking for the higher yield for their assets than just from the pure staking. So how was the first crowd loan? So obviously there were no crowd loans before, so we had nothing to analyze it. Like when we were doing LBP for Hydra in February, there were before us like already like four projects doing LBP. So we were analyzing them a lot, but this was not the case, and it was really like trying to learn something in action actually. So there was still popping up something which was not working, which also cost us some visibility, which first teams got. But anyway, still the Snack and his community, they show like super exciting run. So that was a lot of fun during the race with Bifrost. But we realized that it was not a tragedy to lose, actually, because all the parachain basically and Kusama relay chain, they were not super prepared like technically for functioning, and they are just coming to life, all of them. So that's the right time to come. And Snag really did the sneaky comeback in second auction, and we had much more time to focus on communication and community, and not for the infrastructure as that was already polished. But we went there in a vision that we don't want to overpay the slot too much, as like for example Karura and others. We thought that they raised like more than they could, but we had a deja vu with the LBP. Basically, as we did LBP for Hydra, that was such a staggering success or demand, which we were not expecting, and that was also case for the Basilisk, but it is what it is. And so what we learned so far, and maybe if here sitting some other potential parachain candidates or founders, is that people need you to see you as soon as possible in the QE or in the auction. So don't wait as us, like we were just waiting and observing. Also, people and even like investment funds, they are not like super smart about crowd loans, so they are usually aping or jumping to like clear winners, or at least to the projects who has like clear chance or like high probability to get a slot. And also don't underestimate the infrastructure. Actually, the infrastructure or middleware for blockchains will be or already is bottleneck even for the like chains like Terra or Solana. So it's not all about consensus, but also about other important pieces which needs to work together. And also don't underestimate interest which your competition can get, but also don't underestimate the interest which you can get. And how we see the evolution of crowdloans is that the YOLO tokenomics, when many parachains, they were like throwing out like more than 20 or even like 30% of tokens, have to end because it's not basically sustainable. Like what they will do in April when the first batch will be ending, like they will print like another 30% or what. Also, it's like flooding the space with with too much of supply at once. So these are not sustainable, and already they're like it's clear that Polkadot parachains, they will offer much less supply for their crowdloans, which is actually good. Like then this project can maintain the monetary premium, and also there is a lot of opportunities to make crowdloans easier, because crowdloans are they are demanding a lot of resources of founders and co-founders and basically whole teams to switch from development to marketing, and we feel that we can also offer this. For example, we realized that the upcoming projects, if they will choose to do the liquidity bootstrapping pools on Basilisk, they can raise not stablecoins, but also stablecoins, but mainly KSM or DOT, and use these funds then for the slot. Also, we will have on Hydra and potentially on Basilisk nice feature, which other token treasuries can use for the accumulation via dollar cost averaging KSM and DOT over time, basically from their treasury, which can help them get the slot cheaper, but also more time effective. And that's basically all to crowdloans. Sorry, and I would like to welcome Lumir, who will tell you much more about liquidity bootstrapping pools and how we approach them and why we choose to build them on Substrate.
I think I can go on. Oh, that's my presentation, I guess. Can you guys hear me? Fine? Okay. So I don't have any strong opener. I'm Lumir, and I'm core developer of HydraDX and Basilisk. And I am afraid we have to start with like most boring thing ever, which is history. But don't worry, it will be like simple, because first of all, like there is the eternal question, like how to distribute your tokens. Like there was many ways over the years, and some more infamous and some less. I hope I don't have to mention all of them to you. We will start with the which is most related to the liquidity bootstrapping pools. So, few years ago, projects started listing their tokens just like that on Uniswap or some other decentralized exchange, and that has a lot of advantages. Like as the buyer, you can actually return your tokens you bought or use them immediately, and there is this instant liquidity, and basically do whatever you want with it immediately. And there is advantage so that tokens cannot be ever sold. So you don't have to worry. There is only a limited number of tokens, and if I'm not fast enough, I don't get in, because it's literally impossible to solve all the tokens in the AMM. So that's another nice feature. Other question, of course, is for what price the tokens will be. And also, whales cannot really buy a lot of the tokens at the start, because there would be wrecked by the slippage, which is natural for AMMs. So, but early commerce still have advantage, because with normal AMM, the price cannot really go down until there is like a supply from somebody else of the tokens. So basically it goes up basically exponentially. These are the problems that LBP is trying to solve. Another thing I forgot with DEX's offerings is that you need a lot of initial liquidity as the project to seed the pool with, because you basically have to supply equal amount of like value that you are selling your tokens with, and that can be a lot if you want to have some like normal slippage for even regular orders. So that's not easy to come by, of course. So this LBP also alleviates this. So LBP basically works similarly to the normal AMM pool in many ways, but they have one key feature, and that is that the pool is automatically lowering the price until it reaches like predefined ratio. So it has built-in function that will during the sale push the price down, and there will be constant sell pressure, and that's how it's trying to push the price down. This means if this key feature that actually price can go down, this means that it can be used as price discovery much more efficiently, because theoretically buyers just want to wait until the price reaches the point where they are comfortable to start buying them, and then they will basically equal or even surpass the selling pressure that LBP is automatically putting on the pool. So now the price stay constant, or it can go up, I guess. So it serves pretty good price discovery. Also, the price is rising much slower than in regular DEX offering, so this usually leads to better token distribution as well. Also, nice advantage of the LBP is that suddenly the project, if they want to list their token, they just need fifth or something like that of the initial liquidity to actually be able to start LBP pool, which is very nice. So with all these advantages in our head, we went and decided that we will make our own, we will do our own LBP with XAGX tokens on Balancer. And we dove deep into LBP, studying every aspect of it, running hundreds of simulations through different scenarios. One thing was clear to us from beginning, and that is it's important that basically people don't start buying in beginning of the LBP because because they could increase the starting price too much, and basically the price will have problem to fall down with under the initial price. So that was our number one advice, just wait a bit and then start buying. But nobody listened, and we underestimated power of Hydra heads. And even when we pushed this model to its limits, it wasn't able to absorb all the buying power. But our one of our main goals was to sell as many tokens as possible, which we succeeded in. Actually, you can see the peak on the end when we actually reached the limit of the normally sellable tokens, and since then it behaved like regular initial AMM offering or DEX offering. So that's why it went so steep as well. We were basically running out of the tokens. You can notice the price movement if nobody buys. It's very funny because you can, like, it's the biggest text, but you cannot see it on the graph. It would look something like this. So that obviously didn't happen. But other issues were creeping in as well. Because of combination of dramatic price movement and high gas fees at the moment, like at that time, a lot of trades failed because of slippage limit, which is like unfortunate carryover from normal AMM, where it's actually protecting you, but like in this case, like you were not literally able to buy anything with like default settings in the UI, which was really bad. Like there was so many failed transactions that we decided we will just refund all holders for their fees from the pool of the unsold tokens. With that, we realized that LBP has potential, but there is still stuff that needs to be improved. So we basically re-implemented whole LBP, like just special LBP use case in Substrate. And we were focusing on like making the workflow that smooth, so both users and even projects listing their tokens will have easy time. We also integrated it into a broader framework that supports any products on Basilisk, products on Basilisk in any stage. You can look forward to Colin's talk for more details about that. But our like core feature, most important thing we changed was that we basically eliminate that need to have actually any initial liquidity, because we integrated LBP that way. LBP from the start, when you are buying first setups progressive fee that is basically taking cut and storing it to repay the loan as soon as possible. And this also helps to have additional sell pressure at the start. So basically LBP is guaranteed to like either give the loan back or repay it during its run. So you can basically lend against it without collateral at all. And nice bonus feature is that we have more sell pressure on the start when it's most needed. Of course, we have to try it somewhere. So Basilisk offered us to be a test subject willingly. And we will be bootstrapping BSX and KUSD pool soon. Since we won parachain slot, we were preparing all the necessary stuff on the mainnet. And currently we are in process of setting up channel between us and Akala, so we can transfer KUSD between us. And I guess that's it for me. I have to get back to the building this stuff, so we can launch it as soon as possible, I guess. Oh, it's wrong, the slide. Don't mention it. So it should be like cricket. Never mind.
Thanks, Lumir. Great, amazing. So yeah, I mean, crowdloans and LBPs, they're basically talk about the very beginning of a life of a project, and we have another project of our own that we would like to bootstrap to life, and we're not doing it alone. So we've been waiting for a very long time to do or announce a partnership, although we're working on a couple of those. But we happen to have Jana here from Composable, and she'll be talking more about the JV that we're doing with the guys over at Composable. So just welcome Jana, that is going to talk about Angular. That's a JV. between us and Composable. So it's Basilisk and Picasso, and HydraDX and Composable.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it with the sunny weather as we have now. All of you are here and want to learn more about the exciting updates of Hydra and Composable. I hope my slides are as next. Yes. Okay, so JV joint venture of Composable Finance and Hydra is called Angular Finance. I would like to inform you that, excuse me, okay, that Angular has nothing to do with AngularJS. Just a side note, we are the Angular, you know? Okay, thank you. But before we jump into the talk, I would like to understand more about you and your background a bit when it comes to DeFi experience. So, have you ever used AMM? Please raise your hands if you have used AMM transactions. Okay, good amount of you. Have you ever provided liquidity into AMM? Are you LP yourself? Okay, cool. Have you ever used Warp Finance to borrow against your LP tokens? Warp Finance is also a DeFi protocol. I will explain later how it relates to what I will be talking about, the Angular Finance. But I guess no one heard of Warp. It's fine. I'm a bit angry, but it's okay. Well, obviously, I guess you have never heard of Angular before because we only announced it less than 2 weeks ago. But okay, here we go. Excuse me, the clicker. Okay. Okay, our journey, even though Angular is very fresh product out there, the idea has been maturing over some time. The teams of Composable and Hydra have known each other, some team members for years, some for months. But the bonding is very strong, so we decided to do something together. And Angular as a joint venture was announced on September 17, this year, so not a long time ago. And the good news is that it's not only an idea which was brewing somewhere behind the scenes, but we already have a proof of concept. Okay, so what will we do? What will we do with the Angular? A very important point, Angular is greatly inspired by Warp Finance. Warp Finance is a protocol which we developed in December 2020. But Warp Finance is very focused on Ethereum ecosystem and it will deliver very niche functionalities too. What Angular will deliver is, for instance, isolated lending pair. So are you familiar a bit with isolated lending pair concept? Anyway, so imagine you are using Aave or Compound. You are exposed equally to the risk of the entire platform. So you can say that the global risk of the platform is the highest risk of the single asset on the platform. What isolated lending pairs are allowing us to do is you can pair any niche asset with, let's say, popular asset, and you can mitigate the risk. You can basically stay away from the equal risk shared evenly on the platform, or you can even choose when you are a risk-averse person, you can go for the risk you like. So that's very customizable. So that's first feature. The second feature is utilization curves. We'll introduce also a lot of flexibility when it comes to LTV, like loan-to-value ratio, and interest rates and so forth. So again, imagine big money market protocol, but with far more features than you can now imagine in a DeFi space. Liquidation, we are thinking of doing a Dutch auction or automatic DEX liquidations. And the last feature of version 1 of Angular Finance will be collateral yield farming. So as I explained, isolated lending pairs for you as a takeaway for home is basically that we are de-risking the position of the liquidity providers or of any asset providers into the platform. Then let's have a closer look on the custom configurable utilization curves. So as I mentioned, there is a lot of flexibility with interest rates or a loan-to-value ratio or other features which you now cannot customize. Perhaps some of you are familiar with the concept of Dutch auction. So basically, it's like inverse auction, you can say. You start with a high bid, and then the bid over time decreases. So our idea is to introduce liquidations, which will involve Dutch auction, where every block, the price of the asset will decrease. And also AMM-based liquidations. So yeah, that's something which is still like, we'll provide more details on this. And collateral yield farming. So you may have heard of like some other platforms which sound very similar to this one. For instance, like one big protocol, they also developed something like this. But the thing is that what they perhaps didn't think through, or perhaps they're still in the making, is that when you put a collateral, the collateral stays on the platform. So you are not providing sort of second or even third order of liquidity for the collateral, and you are still limited with the features of the platform. Okay, and important thing about Angular is that we are raising funds. So if you are interested, here is the email, and I can provide more details. And we are also hiring, so if any of you are here Rust developers and are eager to work with us on Angular, yeah, I'm very happy to receive your resume and pass it on to our HR. I mean, I guess the presentations will be shared. But important to say is that it's not only developers we are looking for, but also anyone who is passionate about Angular and about this joint venture of Hydra and Composable. So yeah, just drop me a resume to hiring@Angular Finance. I guess the Q&A follows right after this. So yeah, we skip the question or we shift them. Yeah, one quick remark. Here is a head of business development at Composable, Kirill, and he's looking for NFT projects. So if you yourself are a representative of the project or you know someone, please speak to this great guy. Yeah, that's everything from my side. And please follow us on Twitter @Angular Finance. We haven't started with community building yet, but we'll provide more information very soon. Thank you.
Cool. So we probably want to get those three chairs up here because we're going to have a Q&A time. Yeah, all of them, yeah. Lumir, Jakub, please. We'll be using one mic, so it's going to be pretty inconvenient. No, we have them over there. We don't need another one. I'll have to stand probably because I'll be. You probably come closer, a bit closer. Cool. So you still have time to submit the questions. We have some are good. All right. All right, cool. So let me start with a one. Yeah. So I think this is basically there are two questions asking the same thing. So what is I guess this is a question for HydraDX or Basilisk. So what is your strategy for the slot renewal? So I probably leave it to Jakub.
So there is still some supply allocated for this use case, but mostly to show users or provide them like good and reliable services, good products, so they will see value to support us in another crowd loan. Also, we have a nice feature both in Basilisk and Hydra, which we are calling paying fees in any asset, basically. And we can collect, for example, switch all the fees or part of the fees to KSM, or we can collect KSM, which are used for paying fees. We will be doing LBP for Basilisk itself in KSM as a showcase for this use case. So we can use a lot of ways how to maintain slot.
Lovely. So there's another question, or it's not a question, it's a statement. It says, snack good, where fiski. Well, he's probably lurking in the shadow somewhere. But no, he's sick. He's at home and playing games or something, as he does these days. All right, cool. So there's a, I think this is a good question. So so here, okay. This is for Angular, but I don't know if you can answer that. It says, when 7-figure airdrop to solo Explorer NFT holders? Probably on Angular, I don't know. When 7-figure airdrop to solo Explorer NFT holders?
Oh, that refers to Warp, I guess. Warp had solo Explorer NFTs.
Yeah, I don't know.
I see. We can, whoever asked the question, I'm happy to have a discussion around it.
Yeah. Yeah?
Oh.
You want to elaborate? I can give you the mic. Yeah, just let's please use this because we're recording it. So
if I remember correctly, I think a few months ago, or maybe it's been already a year, I'm not sure, the first Warp users got an NFT. I remember it was a green gorilla card in an astronaut suit. And so there's always like a joke, you need the NFT that's not financial, but eventually you'll get an airdrop or like whitelisted access. So maybe there's
yeah,
something
the thing
coming.
with Warp was that a week after we launched, we got hacked. But we managed to reimburse users to 75%, so that kept us very busy.
I see. Thank you.
thanks. Yeah. So there's another question. Would you still launch on Dot if it wasn't for easy Substrate deployment? So I guess that could be. It's a very general question, but you want to take a shot on it?
If there will be any solution for easy shared security and like interoperability and the great community who are building bridges, so we don't need to do it by ourselves, then yes, but it's I fear that's not the case. The Cosmos is just like going to the way of shared security, so they are just like working on it right now, and then still like the shared or the security within the system like Cosmos is basically a little bit similar to like old school chains. So the weakest part can basically break the security of the whole system. So you will not be secure like what is going on in different zones if one zone would be compromised.
Just brief remark for Angular. We want to stay Kusama native product for the time being. And that's also the core difference between Warp and Angular. So there is no conflict of interest. It's just different platforms.
Until it will not hit the economic security assumptions of Kusama.
That's a very valid point. Thank you.
Thanks. So do you consider 0x tokamak balancer to competition? I guess that's for us. Is it?
Like all of them are very much different. I remember that 0x had the ambition to become a parachain, but it was somewhere in 2019. And no, I don't consider them as a like competition. Crypto is still in the in a space when the different projects, which are at least a little bit similar, or even like totally similar, it's not zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game. The competition is good for everyone, especially for the users.
Yeah. So do you guys anyone has a question that they would be willing to ask right now over here? No. Oh, cool. Let me just give you. Sir.
You mentioned the NFTs, right? So, like, what's the plan with Angular NFTs? Using NFTs as collateral, or?
That was just a side remark because, like, Composable and Hydra created together Angular, and Composable is providing infrastructure for DeFi, and at the moment they are looking for NFT projects. So it doesn't relate to Angular.
We have another question. I'll be coming from this side now. But I guess it's Jana probably. How exactly will the JV with Angular work, and how it will synergize together with Hydra and Basilisk?
So when it comes to resources, we'll start as obviously a united front. We will share team resources, but the idea is to hire. Therefore, the call for hiring. So there's like from the resources and business perspective, we also will be raising funds. But from tech perspective, perhaps Jakub has comments. Or Lumir.
I can answer part of it. In my talk, I mentioned that we are able to launch LBP for projects without any initial collateral. So this is when, for example, Angular comes into mind that they could provide a loan actually for the project.
Yeah, like when we were doing LBP, we need to use almost all of whole money from our seed round to seed the LBP. But the another super strong use case, which is like cementing this JV, is basically the Hydra or Basilisk. They will be used for liquidations of collateral. So right now, as you have like the MEV on it and systems like MakerDAO or Compound or Aave, they are all relying on these arbitrageurs who doesn't need to have like any skin in the game in the these protocols. In our case, it's very much different. That basically, as protocol will be liquidating them, the profits from these liquidations will be basically used as like shared. Will be basically shared within the whole holders of BSX or HDX. So instead of like profitability of parties who don't need to have like any skin in the game, this ecosystem and protocols will be preserving values for its users much more nicely.
I guess one more, the last one. It just says Angular new token, maybe. Who wants to take
Angular
that?
token?
Yeah,
The-
there will be a new token.
Yeah, the call for the fundraising is the token sale.
Whoa.
I can't provide more
As
information.
an LBP, or
Excuse me?
the tokens will be LBP, or
No, they say this is standard token raise, yeah. But we are still shaping token economics together, so.
Perfect. Yeah, I guess that would be it for this block. And thank you guys. Thank you for the questions and thank you for your answers. So we'll dive right into the third presentation, if you will. So we're having a bit more, I don't want to say technical topic, but maybe. So we have Istvan, who will talk about liquidity mining and a little bit on oracles. So Istvan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Okay, let's figure out this thing here. Wrong direction. Okay, I got it. Hi, everyone. My name is Istvan. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for joining us in this beautiful space here. I'll be talking about AMMs and specifically liquidity mining, how we are growing liquidity for the projects, and also a bit about oracles. Now, how can you participate in the DeFi ecosystem? And if you think about it, in financial activities, such as market making, that was previously accessible not by you, but only by institutions that had very specialized knowledge and a really large capital base. But DeFi has changed this and reduced the barriers to enter. So we're bringing these activities to the masses with Basilisk. These are, the differences between the traditional finance and DeFi. However, what they share together is that both benefit from economies of scale. That means that it is crucial to acquire a sizable capital, so deep liquidity, to secure a competitive advantage to other projects. Now, simply put, that means that AMMs need liquidity. And we all know that, but in this talk I will go deeper into the why and how. So basically the most important 4 points of this whole presentations are coming next. We are kickstarting liquidity through the LBPs that Lumir has mentioned previously. Then we use the strategy of an incentive program, liquidity mining, to grow liquidity. As a third step, after getting the deep liquidity, we can become on-chain or reliable on-chain oracles for other DeFi protocols. And with that, we can bring innovative DeFi products. So this has been mentioned so far twice by Jana as automatic DEX liquidation, also by Kubo earlier, and I will talk about it later on. But these are the most important points how we approach this. Obviously, liquidity, the other reasons for having big liquidity that I didn't mention is to have low slippage and so forth, so the mathematical side to it, but it is more from a strategic perspective. Okay, so I assume most of you have already farmed so far yields, but for being complete here, yield farming is basically allocating capital to a DeFi protocol and receiving a return on that, a yield. And well, this is a crypto presentation, so memes shouldn't be missing here. And basically, the funny thing is that the yields in the DeFi space are a multiple higher than in traditional finance. And a lot of money is waiting to go to DeFi. So the meme says, it ain't much, but it's honest work, providing you capital and earning really big interest rates. Now, in the context of AMMs, since Basilisk is an AMM, capital is used for market making. So you provide capital for this financial activity. Then when users interact with the AMM, so when they trade, when they exchange, they have to pay fees, and those fees are distributed to you, the capital provider, and or also to the protocol. This yield is called intrinsic yield, and I'm not going to focus on that. Liquidity mining is different from this yield. Liquidity mining is basically another return opportunity for you on providing capital to our platform in the form of governance tokens, BSX. Now, to summarize, liquidity farming is getting rewards for staking your LP tokens. And this is not something that we invented, so this is best practice and being used. However, we want to do it differently than the common approach. And let's talk a little bit about the common approach and the shortcomings. Basically, in the common approach, there are very high rewards early on when a farm is started in order to attract liquidity. And this is basically like helicopter money, throwing money at people, and it works. It attracts liquidity early because returns are promised in the thousands of %. And over time, well, whales join in order to earn the high returns. However, this is not sustainable, and over time also the multipliers drop programmatically and whales dump, and as a result liquidity is not loyal, and that's not good. That's not good for the project that gives you governance tokens which gets later on dumped and not distributed to early contributors. So to summarize this in a picture, it would like this. Whales getting all the rewards for this farming. Now, we want to bring a twist to this. So the starting point is liquidity is not loyal, and how do we turn it into loyal? Because we know that the common approach is not really sustainable. And that's why we incentivize long-term growth, so long-term contributions, people who really stay in the farm. And we do this by introducing a time component in the algorithm. And I will go into detail how that works. Now, before I explain in detail what the time component is, let me just say what it is not. It is not hard locking your LP tokens in the farm and you cannot withdraw. That is not at any point the case. You can always move your funds. No, it is a different approach. It is basically also, it is introducing a reward multiplier. And what you see here is a multiplier that we apply whenever you claim your reward. And this multiplier moves between 0 and 100%. We will also see the mathematical formula, how it approaches 100%. It doesn't reach it exactly, but in the long run, it gets really close to that. And for my example, it starts at 0%. So this talk will be also recorded, and I assume that people would want to mark this part of the presentation and come back to understand how their claims will be calculated later on. We don't have to study the formula in detail, but basically we have the reward multiplier that is dependent on time, and this is the formula that is being used by the algorithm. But let's plug it into one use case and let's experience it ourselves. So here I have as an example a farm where 4 units of rewards are being paid out per week. And what we see here is that at the first week we have 25% of the reward multiplier, and we know that 25% out of 4 units would be 1 unit. So if the user or delegator claims after 1 week, he or she gets 1 unit of reward. Now, if it would have been at 50%, it would be actually 2 units, since 50% of 4 are 2 units. But that is not being paid out to the user. And this is the difference here. Let's see what happens if the user claims 1 week later again. 1 week later, we see that the user receives, that's the yellow part, the user receives for that 1 week 2 units of reward, and we have programmed this algorithm in a way, or designed it in a way, where the missing 1 reward is also getting paid out later on. So I call it here as an extra incentive for people to really stay in the farm, but because they will also receive the rewards that were reserved for them in the very beginning. So claiming is basically not punished, and we further incentivize people to stay in the farms. So as a result, if we look at the complete 2 weeks of farming, the user will receive 4 units of rewards. Okay, let's explore the effects of paying out BSX rewards through farms. What is the effect on the circulating supply of BSX? And we have here 2 curves. On the x-axis we have time, on the y we have BSX supply, and one curve is green, which is the theoretical max supply, and the blue one is the circulating supply that's indeed circulating there. And we see here basically 2 phases where the max supply is constant and then it goes up. This is because in the beginning we will have farms that increase the supply, and as users claim the blue one, so I don't have a laser pointer, or I do? Okay. So as people are claiming their rewards, it will approach the green line. It's not moving up immediately because of the time factor that I talked about earlier. And after one point, the inflation will be used to pay out rewards. So basically, we reserve a part of BSX for the farms, for liquidity mining, and later on, the inflation will be used to pay for those rewards in the long run. Now, if we look conceptually how we will incentivize multiple pools, we see it here in this graph, where we have basically one big pot of Basilisk that gets distributed to multiple farms, and there is a governable weight among the farms that decides how much of that is being sent to the farms. For example, in the first one, it's 50% of all basilisk that we want to distribute through farming, and in the other ones, we have varying percentages. And this weight can be changed. Let's assume we will add more farms. The weights need to be updated. And why am I showing this to you? Because it looks quite trivial. It is because we have another feature, so to say, where farms that don't have so much value locked, they will have a reduced amount of weight coming from the big pot. So basically, in the farm A, let's assume we anticipate a lot of contributions, but that doesn't happen. We will automatically set down the percentage that is being consumed from the big pot, and this is, so to say, a protection not to share too many basilisks in the very beginning as farms are being kick-started. It's also interesting to note that here it's reduced to 30%, but the other percentages are not increased. That means more basilisk stays in the big pot and all farms can run longer. Okay, so from a farmer's perspective, there will be many farms, and then of course there's the question, how can you farm all the liquidity when so many projects are sharing or kickstarting liquidity farms? And we also have a solution for that. Basically, we will allow multiple incentives for the same farm. That means that a new DeFi project can start, let's say, a new farm for their own token pair, but also incentivize existing farms. And why would they do that? Let's say it is a friendly project with synergies with Basilisk, with a cooperation, and that makes a lot of sense to also capture those users and to do campaigns like this. So I've been talking so far about how to grow liquidity pools, how to attract capital, and what do we do when we have deep liquidity pools. So more on a strategic level, what can we do which we couldn't before? Assuming that we have a big pool, that means that it can be also a reliable on-chain oracle for other DeFi projects, and they can then consume price averages over certain time spans as they define, the depth of the liquidity, but also the volume, which creates synergies with those protocols. And basically, this allows us to bring new features. So here I call it a liquidation engine with order matching. So that's, let's say, a fancy expression for automatic DEX liquidations, which I won't go in depth here, but basically these are very innovative DeFi features not seen before, and this is our strategy to bring these features to the community. Okay, so that's the end of my liquidity mining and Oracle talk. Thank you. And it says questions. Do we go to questions right immediately?
No, I guess we can do it afterwards with the other two guys who present.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing presentation. So yeah, so we decided we're gonna do the the Q&A at the very end. So now we have a 30-minute break, so you can help yourself to some food, coffee. It's free. So yeah, see you in like 30 minutes. And now we're gonna have another co-founder and CTO, another Jakub. So there are two Jakubs. And this is our CTO who will introduce some UX features. So you finally gonna see what Basilisk will look like. So Jakub, it's yours.
Okay. I don't need to do my presentation. I'm good. No. Okay, so we forgot one slide. I'm going to talk about experiences, not just user experiences, but also developer experiences and how we can improve them, because building blockchains is really hard. So this is my experience from using crypto. I don't know if you saw this ever. These are the failed transactions from our LBP. Slide. This is like a transaction fee that I was asked during some contract interactions. It says like $5,000. And this is what you do every time if you interact with contracts on Ether with ERC20. So it wants to spend your, I don't know what that number is, but all of it. Actually, building blockchains is not that easy, and I understand why it is like that, but we need to improve it. So let's look at it. We can track users and see what they are doing. Or no. I was working in a company that before blockchain that tracked every user movement, and we saw what are pain points of the users, and it really worked. But I don't think that it's a good way to do stuff, especially in decentralized environment when we can do other stuff. It is at this time actually that I learned about blockchain and user experience research. So what we can do with user experience research, we can analyze competition. We can learn from the mistakes of others. We can use the products, see how they can improve. And since we are all open source and small ecosystem, we should strive to learn from each other. So we went and asked our people what is their best user experience in using products of like other products. We've looked at these. This is Balancer. Slow. Click. Yeah, okay. That was a slow transaction. So we looked at these products, and then we gathered the data, we looked at the pain points that users have, and tried to improve on it. So then we can do anonymized user surveys. We can ask users actually what is their problem. Like, hey, you use this application. Let's tell us. Like, it's anonymous. We want your feedback. How can we improve? And I think this is important, especially in decentralized ecosystem. We can actually do it. If you're Apple, maybe you cannot ask your users like, what the shit, because you get 1,000 or million responses and you don't know what to do with them. But we're really small, and we can actually do this correctly. So we asked, what are the pain points of users in LBPs, for example, liquidity bootstrapping pools that Lumir was speaking about. So you can see that more than half of the participants was stressed during the use of the LBPs. The learning curve is high. The gas or network conditions was huge during the LBPs, and the problem was also focusing on when to buy. So that is a good problem to have, but the other ones we can improve. This is what we came up with for Basilisk. It's actually, you will not use this, it's for, maybe you do. If you bootstrap a token, you'll maybe use this UI to bootstrap new LBP. And we try to, even for normal users, to convey the information that you want for your trade to make conscious decisions, because other projects mostly don't do it very well. We try to improve on it, and this is a little bit more crowded than the normal user experience will be, but this is for advanced guys. So we have this. Yeah, okay, sorry. Shit. Oh man. Okay, so after we got all of this, we can ask our users who are using our products to say something about them that we will not like disclose who they are, but like, I'm basic user. I can interact with the product, but these are my pain points. So the second one will be probably some liquidity provider, and he will say, okay, I want this feature. And this is very, very important so that we can move the experiences forward. And I didn't see a lot of projects doing it. So I think the important the next steps is to ask other projects to conduct this research with us. And I think we can all share the responses, because we are working in decentralized environment where everything is interconnected. And as soon as we are interconnected, users of one project will start to be users of other projects, and they will have similar problems to use every application. And this data can be still anonymous, can be shared, and we can use it to improve what we saw in the first slide. Okay, so we had UX research. Next, this is really nice. We know how the applications should work. We know how they should look like, but right now we need to build it, and everybody would try to build anything in blockchain, even front-end facing application nodes. It's really hard because you need to understand what you are doing. And you need to understand the data, you need to transform the data, and blah, blah, blah. It's really hard. So what we want to do is to improve it, but by providing SDKs, by providing APIs, nice APIs, documented APIs, by improving the development process. And if we can do that, we can get more talented people, which are maybe not as technical as we are, to work on these applications and create better user experiences for us. This is what we are doing. We are aiming for it, and it will take a long time and a lot of work, but we need this to be able to expand the talent pool of actually building some application on top of blockchains. So then what we need to do is do actual testing before the products launch. And to do this, we need to build test nets, but they need to be incentivized, because otherwise users will not care. So we will create the bounties, for example, with traders, with a bot, and they will fight for like who will have more tokens at the end, and the best one wins some real tokens. But we need to do this to see like how they interact with the product and to improve their experiences also. We need to improve everything. And there comes automation at the end. And that means that all of this is really hard, but we can automate most of it. We don't need to front-end developers to build their testing environments because it takes hours, for example. We don't need to. We don't need users to create their own testnets. We can automatically do this after each commit to the repository, and for this, how it works like, and maybe a deeper dive. I've shown you like what's on top of it. I will come to tell you what's inside, but not very deep, just slightly.
Okay, I want to improve the developer's experience and I don't know how this thing works. At some point I will, but down. Okay. Well, I'm down in. Okay, cool. Good afternoon. Yeah, the journey to crypto is very complicated. I recall that I have started in 2016, and it was really hard to, read the code, go to GitHub repositories, and try to contribute. And we wanted to become a very welcoming, yet, we cannot remove the complexity of what we are building, but we can improve the experience of our developers, right? So. For this, we have created a set of tools. I'm going to talk about some of them, which help, first of all, our core developers to develop faster, to develop in good conditions, and then these are going to be helpful for other developers to be able to contribute and to basically find their way in. The goal of what I'm going to talk about today is to share it with the community, open source it, and to be able to, help everyone with all our findings, and then, get contributions and get in. So the first thing that our developers are struggling with are the build pipelines. So basically, you have some code, you write it in your computer, and then you have to be able to test it somewhere, right? And so what we have built, I'm not going to talk to you about the past of what we had because it was painful, and the developers can testify. But basically today, all a developer can do needs to do basically is to push something to a repository, right? So let's say that we have 3 developers. The first one is having a feature branch, and he or she is writing some code for some new feature. Second one is deploying a fix, and the third one is again doing a feature. So basically each of those has his own branch, and once a push goes to this repository, it triggers an independent pipeline. And how we are building this independent pipeline is basically by having for each branch its own instance of server, which is pre-compiled, pre-installed. And with this, we were able to do 2 main things. The first one is to be able to allow developers to work in parallel, okay? And so each one has his or her own pipeline, which is really independent from the other developers. That's the first thing. And with this, we can parallelize features and developments by however. That's really a truly distributed system. And then the second reason, the second thing, is one that I just forgot, but I will record it later. Okay, so the other thing that Jakub talked about is the test nets. So basically, a lot of people need to test some things, UI developers, whatever. And so what we have developed is some kind of an infrastructure based on Kubernetes, so every container everything. So basically, what we can do, and I will show you the steps that we go through in order to be able to build that, is within seconds, literally, you can deploy parachains, as many parachains as you want. It doesn't need to be our own parachains. We can have other parachains, Akala or whatever. And then these parachains are directly connected to a relay chain or to some validators, and all of this within seconds are of development time and within minutes of waiting to deploy something. So, and all of these have some kind of a shared volume. For example, if we want to have, configuration files of whatever kind, then they can all be shared with this shared volume. And the good news is that everything is open source, and you can just, find your way in and ask us questions if this can be of interest to you. Okay, so to wrap up, we have each developer can have his or her separate environment. We want to make it a very welcoming environment for every developer. Well, I mean, I cannot help them understand Substrate. I don't understand it myself, but they can at least develop stuff in good conditions. No overlap. I recall that in our repo, at least we had, like, if we had 3 developers working on some feature and they deploy a pipeline, it takes time, first of all, and then some of them need to wait until everything has deployed successfully or not, and then they need to, wait in order to do their work. So it takes time, and we know that time for developers is very, very important, because if you lose focus at some point because some pipeline is waiting so long, then, try again tomorrow. So, and so, yeah, we can parallelize work at will, and this is something I think cool. So I'm not going to be long here. Basically, we have CI/CD pipeline, which basically is based on GitHub Actions. Since we deploy everything on Kubernetes, we have some YAML manifests which contain deployments. For example, for those who know, with a Docker image of the parachain, relay chain, whatever. And then we apply these YAML manifests, and then we have running pods within seconds. And everything is fully automated. The second part, which is the CD, which shouldn't look like this, but just imagine that certificate is here, and yeah. So basically what we do is that at the end, what we need to have, like, imagine the whole pipeline where a developer pushes something to the master branch, and after a few minutes, he or she has access to these links, right? So that's the whole pipeline. And everything that's in between is not the responsibility of the developer. He or she does not need to care about anything in between, right? And so all we have to do is, well, the continuous deployment has, it creates what we call an ACM certificates, which is basically a way to secure the links of parachain or relay chain that we are going to be deploying. And then we create root 53 entries. It's some service in AWS, but this can be ported to any other service in GCP or Azure or anything to create basically the links. And then we deploy those as applications with something that we call ALB, Application Load Balancer, which is also a feature that all clouds have. And that's it. At the end, we have links available. You do whatever you want to do with your WebSockets, and this is deployed. And yeah, that was it for me. Thank you. Welcome.
Whoa, yeah, I'm back. Perfect. So, leading snack to water, yeah, that's a final presentation. And this was not only about sort of giving presentations and talking about things, but also to introduce some new faces, because you've been, I mean, the whole community of Hydra heads has only been listening to Jakub and Jakub for like over a year, and it's good to see new faces and introduce new team members. And we have a special guest, our head of research all the way from Minnesota, Colin, will talk about Road to Hydration. So Colin, please give it up for Colin. It's all yours.
Thank you. There we go. Welcome to the last talk this evening. You all have made it, almost. And welcome to the Road to Hydration. So I joined just a few months ago, but it's been a really exciting few months, and I'm really glad to be here and sharing with you all sort of our vision for the future of HydraDX and also Basilisk. So, they said, there we, oh, no. There we go, okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by talking about a couple features specifically of HydraDX. And the focus isn't gonna be so much the features themselves, but it's gonna be a way to frame how we think about the project and how we think about what we're building, okay? Although I think the features themselves are pretty interesting. And something that I'm going to be talking about, and I don't love this phrasing, but flexible matching, or trying to align user needs with each other in a flexible way, right? Because we're a decentralized network, which really means we're trying to figure out how users in a peer-to-peer way can sort of match up like what sort of the transactions they want to do, right? So I'll be able to better sort of articulate this as we get into examples, but that's going to be kind of a recurring theme. Okay, so I know this is going to be a little simple, but bear with me. We won't be here long. Liquidity, right? Let's step through a very simple example of why we need it. So let's say Alice wants to buy some DOT, and Bob wants to sell some DOT. Well, great. But Alice wants to buy more DOT than Bob wants to sell at the moment, right? So they have partially offsetting sort of financial needs, but not completely. Well, here's Charlie, or Charlie E, or something, Charlie. Charlie will want to sell the right offsetting amount of DOT, but he wants to sell it tomorrow, not today. Okay. So we're almost at a point where these three users can offset sort of each other's financial needs, right? But not quite. So liquidity is the solution to this, right? It's essentially a buffer that allows these users to execute the transactions they want to execute. Okay, so with a liquidity pool, and of course, traditionally banks or other market makers have played the role of this, but here in crypto world, and especially DeFi, we are going to talk about liquidity pools and AMMs. So with a liquidity pool, Alice and Bob can trade as much as they can basically agree on, right? To the extent that their financial needs line up, they can execute a trade, and then the remainder can be satisfied by the liquidity pool. Okay, so this liquidity pool, even though we're not going to it for all the sort of requirements of these trades, it's still facilitating this transaction. And in fact, tomorrow, Charlie can execute his transaction, right? And it can be almost perfectly offsetting. It looks like we have a little bit of slippage, but it can be almost perfectly offsetting, and the net sort of change to the pool can be very close to zero. But the pool is facilitating this, all three of these transactions, okay? So the takeaway here is we're trying to line up our user transactions such that we need as little of this liquidity as possible, right? We're trying to be very efficient with this liquidity. And so when I say flexible matching, what I'm saying is we want as much of this as possible, and we want to facilitate that using the liquidity pool. All right. So what if, in this situation, we allowed Alice, and Alice wanted to do this, we allowed Alice to set a limit order and say, well, over the next day, I want to buy this much DOT. And maybe I don't want to deal with as much slippage as the AMM would give me, but I'm okay with waiting a day, right? Well, that may allow her, oh, I do have a laser pointer, that may allow her to execute the trade with Bob and then execute the trade tomorrow with Charlie, right? And so that would be an example of extending the trade types that we can have in a way that relaxes the constraints, right? Allows Alice to relax the constraint of her trade, and we don't have to dip into the liquidity pool possibly at all, or at least, you know, we can use a lot less of this liquidity pool, okay? The liquidity pool is still facilitating these transactions, right? So this still has to be here, and liquidity providers should still get rewards for facilitating these transactions because they're still doing that. But we've greatly increased the efficiency of that liquidity. Okay. All right, one more example, and then we're going to sort of step back and talk about what this allows us, sort of what this gets for us. Yes, important note. So it is important to note that this is when we build our own chain, we can do things like this. Okay, so we can batch transactions, we can net them against each other, and we can basically use the liquidity more efficiently. Okay, and there's a number of other use cases that it's really critical to be on our own chain for, and features that we can only add because of that. So the the use case specific chain, right, that comes with the Polkadot model is very important. All right. Okay, so one more sort of feature example. In the Omni pool, we can allow single asset liquidity providing, okay? So perhaps the Omni pool has KUSD, DOT, and Mover. With most pool designs, there we go, Alice would need all 3 tokens in order to provide liquidity to a pool with these 3 tokens. And she can still in the Omni pool do this if she wants. Now note that one could design a pool where she can, you know, just provide KUSD and then it automatically buys DOT and Mover, but she's still exposed at that point to all the tokens. And she may not want to have exposure to all those tokens. But with the Omni pool, we go the right direction, there we go. Bob and Charlie, Bob may only have KUSD and may only want exposure in KUSD, right? And with the Omni pool, with the sort of using HDX as almost a buffer currency, Bob can just provide KUSD and Charlie can just provide Mover, okay? Now, I gotta connect this to sort of the theme, right? This is allowing users to have sort of more flexible, better matching sort of user needs, right? So Alice is fine with exposure to all 3 of these tokens, but Bob only wants exposure to KUSD, and Charlie only wants exposure to Mover, right? And we can incorporate all of these as LPs in a single pool. And by doing that in a single pool, we have less slippage, right, between any swaps between any of these tokens. Okay. All right. So I want to sort of, stepping back for a second, talk about the flywheel of how we see these features, right? Not these features and other features we look at. So we get better user matching or trade matching or order netting or whatever you want to call it, right? So if we can find ways to achieve this, then we get better liquidity efficiency. Now, the design of the Omni pool, where it's all one pool, gives us better liquidity efficiency anyway, right? So there's other ways to achieve this, but better user matching certainly helps, or trade matching. When we have better liquidity efficiency, we get increased returns, right? Which means more LPs, which means more traders, which means better user matching, okay? So this is a cycle, and we think sort of pretty hard about every point in this cycle, but the idea is that this should sort of, this flywheel should attract liquidity to our platforms. We are early enough in the project that it's worth talking about a couple other effects. So increased returns can also fund development, which can give us more user flexibility, by which I mean we can develop more trade types, right? So we can develop more ways for users to express their exact requirements for a trade, whether that's a limit order, maybe that's one of these Dutch auctions, right? Exactly what kind of swap or what kind of financial transaction do they need? And that gives us better user matching. It gives us more traders, and you know, LPs are users too, so if we design ways for LPs to have exactly the exposure they want, we can get more LPs, okay? So this is what I'm calling here the feature flywheel. All right. So just to list some other features, I walked through two in some detail, but partially fillable limit orders is something that will allow us to match more trades, right? Match more users. Stable swap AMMs give LPs a very specific exposure that they want. We can put stable swap subpools in the Omni pool, which allows for efficient trading between tokens that should be pegged to each other, while also allowing LPs to get rewards from trades with other tokens. Limit orders with automatically changing prices, which can be used for auctions, which I think we've sort of mentioned a couple of times might be used for liquidation engines, oracles. These are all features that we think will get that flywheel kind of going. All right, so section 2. This will be a little shorter because we have already heard about some of these features, right? But I want to sort of tie it together and tie some things we've heard about in previous talks to this vision. So a number of the talks have discussed how we look at either internal tools or problems that we see that we've had to solve in the process of launching Basilisk and HydraDX. And how can we either help other projects or even turn this into products and help them sort of turn our tools into products and help them more formally in that way, right? And so we'll look at sort of liquidity bootstrapping, which we've discussed. Angular, of course, liquidity mining, and oracles are all good examples of these. Okay, so imagine a new token launches on Basilisk LBP, okay? So here is the new LBP. Well, it can get a loan, as was mentioned, from Angular, right? And that means that this loan is sort of repays itself automatically from the LBP fees, potentially. Some of this typesetting is not ideal. This says liquidity mining, in case that's not clear. Liquidity mining, so the LBP can turn automatically into an AMM with the tokens that are left in the pool. And the project, should they desire, can implement a liquidity mining program, right, on their tokens, all on Basilisk. Well, as soon as we have an AMM with this new token, we can have oracles, right? Now it's only going to get, it's only going to be really reliable as the AMM has deep liquidity, as Istvan talked about. But this is a path to getting oracles, again, still on Basilisk, right? Now, once we have oracles for this token, we can get a sense of the health of these AMMs. And once it seems pretty healthy, once the liquidity is deep enough, the token seems pretty stable. And this at the moment would be a governance action for Hydra, but we can bridge across to Polkadot and put the token in Omnipool. Okay. At which point now we have an oracle, so we get the benefits we've discussed about, you know, single asset liquidity provision, oracles, order matching, stuff like that, for this new token. Okay. So what you see here is sort of a launch of a new project. We're helping facilitate launches of new projects using our experience of launching, right? Using our experience and code, right, and productionalizing sort of the code we wrote for our own launch with LBPs, liquidity mining, AMMs, etc. Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk about something essentially the same information here, but in a different form. Okay, so this was the feature flywheel. We already saw this a second ago. There it is, feature flywheel. All right, now we're going to look at the ecosystem flywheel. Okay. All right, so, and this is, like I said, we just walked through this. A new token launches on Basilisk. Okay. LBP is successful. Now there's a token in the Basilisk AMMs. Now we have a token oracle, but we also have this new token in the Basilisk and Hydra system, right? And that means that it is more attractive. We're going to attract more traders who want this token. We're going to attract LPs, maybe, who want to stake this token. And so this actually feeds into our, what I called the feature flywheel, right? It makes Basilisk and HydraDX more attractive places for users to come to trade or LP. Okay. Same with this, right? So now the token's in Omnipool and we have a token oracle. And once again, the token oracle makes this ecosystem, right? Makes these networks more attractive places for users and for LPs and additional projects to live. And you get the picture, right? So Basilisk and HydraDX get early liquidity in new tokens is sort of the idea, and that makes it a more attractive place for the next project to launch. Okay, so we have this ecosystem flywheel feeding into the feature flywheel is how we see this. All right. Finally, research and development. I thought of this initially as another flywheel, but then I realized it's really stabilizing things, right? To say that something like research, it can happen fast, but I think it's better thought of as stabilizing the system, right? Especially when we add governance in there, which is best thought of as stabilizing rather than speedy, for example. So I'll talk about open research because this is what I've been the most involved in. But we've had an open course, basically an open research course with block science and token engineering that's ongoing, where we have been teaching our Omnipool design, and block science has been teaching their sort of dynamic system engineering process or token engineering process and CAD simulation library in conjunction with token engineering. So we've had about 20 participants with a wide variety of backgrounds, and I'm talking like theoretical physicists, people with backgrounds more in sociology, economics, finance, computer science, and token engineering or mechanism design or whatever you want to call it is a new enough field that it's really good to have a broad variety of backgrounds, and we can really learn a lot from each other. And I think that's where open research is really nice. There's not, like, you really don't want much credentialism because you don't really know where the next contribution is going to come from. So I have a link here. So I should mention students right now are at the stage where they are forming research projects and plans, and they're all related to Omnipool research questions. So there's a group researching dynamic fees. They're looking at adjusting the omnipool designs, basically the bonding curves and stuff, to maybe slightly improve impermanent loss and slippage and stuff like this. And they're using the token in the sort of block science method and the CAD simulation library. And so this has been really exciting and a really nice way to connect with other people and other projects and get other projects familiarized with our work, with HydraDX and Basilisk. So here's sort of the last like big cycle I want to show you. So in the middle here, we have the in the very middle we have the feature flywheel, and then here it's just arrows is this ecosystem flywheel, and on the outside we have governance, open development, and open research. And when I say governance here, I really mean decentralized governance. It has been sort of an intention from the start with HydraDX and Basilisk to be decentralized. I think in the current regulatory environment, we're seeing one reason, but it's not the only reason by any stretch. And if you're going to be decentralized, there's no choice other than to do your research out in the open, right? You can't do your research in private and then ask your token holders to approve sort of upgrades based on this research you're not telling them what it means or what it is. And so I think that, there's a lot of systems doing open, or a lot of projects doing kind of open source work and open development, and I think open research is a really important aspect of this too. So I see this as sort of stabilizing this whole system. All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Jakub.
Yeah. So it would be nice if we can make this lovely event also a little bit productive and useful for everyone, especially for you and for us, and told you where we need help, because we were always growing organically. So all of our colleagues who you could see today, they were not hired by any agencies or anyone. They just came, they just pop up in our communities and Discord channels, Telegram, and start to help us or asking how they can help. And so the easiest way is, or preliminary steps are, join our Discord channels. If you are a builder or want to build something on contribute in a little bit more advanced fashion, then it would be great if you will join Hydration. Hydration will be turned soon to basically the development DAO, which would be catering development on Basilisk, Hydra, but also other projects. Then also, if you are interested in tokenomics or just economics research, then it would be great if you will join the open research initiative within the token engineering community. You don't need to be scared. You can really catch up with all the content pretty fast. Then if you don't want to build, if you don't want to research, you could still create memes, which are super important, especially in crypto. And maybe totally the most useful would be if you will be using the protocols even at their testnet stage to help us to help us with your feedbacks and experiences and findings and everything. And you could be hard on us. You could also collect, but also create bounties for yourself and others just by work. And there is no DeFi without decentralization and governance. So we are expecting that you will be participating as well in governance, development, etc. Or you can just learn from us and maybe build something great by yourself. And as I told before, the hydration would be switch soon to DAO. And yeah, so what are the next steps for Snack and for Hydra? So currently there are audits finishing. After audits, we will launch LBP for BSX. So if you didn't catch the chance in Crowdloans, or you just want to more BSX, you can contribute in LBP. After LBPs will be claims activated. So if you were in Crowdloan, you would be able to claim your BSX. Then the other AMM pools will be launched, mostly XYK with order matching plus the curve one, which is waiting on the backend. Then obviously liquidity mining will be turned on. We will launch the internal oracles. Order matching is currently going through the optimization of algorithm, and also we hope Angular will be launched soon, as it is also going after the under the audits, I think in the end of October. And currently for the Hydra, there will be most important proposal for very unprecedented step in direction of crypto project. So we will we want to reward people retroactively 3 times more basically, because the success of LBP wasn't just clear success. It also makes some things harder for us, and we realized that we put 2 less of tokens for the LBP participants, not by intentionally, as some founders are doing, because when you have low free float, it's easy to do pumps and then dumps. But we were just didn't expect such success, and we also want to be really decentralized and not just use decentralization as a buzzword. So by tripling the LBP supply, the community will have actually a little bit more of supply and tokens than we have, and all of this actually before the mainnet launch. And also Hydra is also waiting and going through the audits, and then will be Polkadot Crowdloans, which are coming soon. Omnipool will be launched, and then Hydra will finally work. And thank you everyone for coming here.
Okay, perfect. So let's do the Q&A. So can I have Jakub, Colin, and Ayub as well? And also, oh yeah, Istvan is here. Let's get the chairs up there. So a lot of people. We got it. Four. Yeah, Jakub. Another. Yeah, come on. So Jakub is known as Mr. Q&A because he loves Q&As and he can go on forever. So we need to stall because the food's gonna be at 7. So sorry. Okay. Okay, so I think we're gonna start with questions that we have over here, and then if we have more questions in the audience, we can always do that. So, cool. So the first question that is the most upvoted one is, it says DeFi experience sucks. When Snack and Hydra in my phone, and Robinhood, Revolut, Random Wallet? Question mark. Okay, Jakub.
As I said before, doing this is actually really hard, and we first need to build an infrastructure. But I think next year there will be Snack in your phone, and you will be blowing your mind over the experience compared to other projects. At least that's my plan.
Anyone wants to expand on that? All right. So this is a high-level question, but I think it's good. So will Basilisk be an equal beast to Hydra, or it is meant to be mainly a support / wingman? So, Jakub?
No, Basilisk, as an older brother, he will be much more funnier thing. No, he's actually older. He's actually older, and he will provide much more fun. There will be much more use cases. Like already there are 3 different type of AMMs and NFT supports, marketplace for NFTs and auction palette for utilizing candle auctions for selling NFTs and like whatever you want to sell via candle auctions. Why we will try to keep Hydra lean, but turn it to the state-of-art DEX.
So maybe I'll extend this one or throw a curveball to Colin, since he came all the way from the US and he should answer a difficult question. So how do you see the different? I mean, you're working on the Omnipool, so you're doing the really heavy lifting of the math behind it. And how do you see the sort of the edge of both, right? Like one is the Omnipool, one is a sort of more traditional AMM model. So how can you innovate in both? And how do you see what are the strengths of both, like HydraDX and Basilisk?
Sure. So Hydra, the Omnipool, although it isolates to an extent exposure to the different assets, can't do it completely. And so introducing a brand new asset to the Omnipool at the moment would be a governance vote in HDX. So when you LBP first a brand new asset, you don't want that immediately to go into the Omnipool. So that's one sort of distinction. Another distinction is that, like, if an LP really only wants exposure to to 2 assets, neither of which is HDX, if they LP in the Omnipool, they'll get some exposure to HDX, right? And so in terms of trying to get users choices in what tokens they have exposure to, we need other pools besides the Omnipool as well, right? And Basilisk is sort of a natural place for that, since that's sort of where we are, where we have sort of the LBP and liquidity mining.
Thanks. Let's switch the topic. So this one is probably for Istvan. So aren't you just extending the liquidity loyalty with the time multipliers? Because at a certain point, whales will still dump.
Well, this doesn't fit into the behavior of whales. So whales usually want to stay in a project shortly, and in a common practice, usually the multipliers are like 40 times for the first day and 20 times for the second day and so forth. So that attracts whales for a short amount of time who will dump later on. However, in our case, we won't have like a 40x multiplier. I have to disappoint you. I mean, we didn't fix the numbers, but I guess we are not doing that. But I think the dynamics are different, and whales are not going to stay for a long time, for, let's say, months to get to 100%. So that's the anticipated effect.
Yeah, but you can still have like some whales excited about Hydra so much, and there are already some of them, that they will stay in pool for a longer time. But the point was to the small guy, a small retailer who will be early in pool and leave it for a long time, they can have basically much more higher reward than the whale coming for the short time or later after him.
So basically, your half of Bitcoin or like 0.1 Bitcoin can have the same strength over time as like someone's 100 Bitcoin.
Yeah, thanks for extending this. So there are also good whales, right? And not just bad ones. I was referring to the bad ones.
This is a sophisticated question. How much APY, Anon?
How much APY in the farms? I guess the number will be so big you have to turn your phone into landscape to read it, maybe. But jokes aside, that's not our strategy to have a pump and dump game here, but actually to have long-lasting APY. So it's difficult to say percentages, right? Everyone wants to know percentages, we can't tell them. But how stupid this question might sound, actually, we will also need to think how we will display this number, since there will be one number for people who stay until it reaches 100%, and there might be a second number for people who will be continuously claiming and claiming. So we will need to think about this user experience as well. And yeah, as stupid as it sounds, actually I like this question, even though I can't answer it straight away.
We can say that's going to be definitely a smart APY. So you heard it here first. It's a new term, a buzzword. Amazing. This is I don't know if this is a question for us. It's more, but we can try and answer. So when Polkadot parachains auctioned, I don't know if it did, like if do you mean like generally, or when like Hydra will bid? You don't want to reveal yourself. Oh, we can answer both. Yeah, right. So who wants to take it? Okay.
So I'll answer the first part, and we actually don't know, but the audits of Polkadot are, I think, finished right now. So it will be probably pretty soon, but not sooner than the unlocking period of Polkadot, which is 28 days. So if we get an announcement, for example, on Sub-Zero conference, which is 13th, I think, then it will be at least 28 days from that date. So, and the second part, when our?
Like straight away.
Like now? Oh, okay, fair enough. This is a good one. So, how can Basilisk interact with Kintsugi? Well, they're not even a parachain yet, right? But you want to take it? Go ahead.
Well, we can get Bitcoin liquidity into our pools, and I think it will be interesting. So, yeah, and we can also do shared liquidity mining for the pools, if that comes to some agreement between the projects, and maybe Jakub has more ideas.
Well, it depends on the functionality of Kintsugi. If they will focus just on like Bitcoin interoperability, then obviously we will be happy to use to integrate their Bitcoin, because this is the team who are like real OGs in like Bitcoin interoperability space. And when they will deploy it, or when Kintsugi will be working or interlay, that would be actually the first or second really trustless Bitcoin for DeFi. The first one is a Keep network, but it actually doesn't, they are not doing very well. And and they have like separate model, because Keep network basically copied that model. They need also some maintainers or liquidators if the economic guarantees for that Bitcoin vaults or so-called vaults or bonds will be reaching some like dangerous threshold, so they can also use Basilisk or Hydra to be to liquidate these insecure vaults by these animals.
Thanks. Elegant. This one could be for Colin. But so can the Omnipool support all types of crypto assets? If not, which types are supported?
So I can give sort of the theoretical answer, and then maybe we'll need a technical answer from Jakub here. But I think we will want some sort of, like I was mentioning before, like a governance vote before a new token is introduced, right? Because the value, whenever you can trade any token with this new token that might be introduced to the Omnipool, LPs could experience some impermanent loss due to that. Now, it would be via exposure to HDX, so it wouldn't be direct exposure to this new asset, but it would not be the case that like there'd be no relationship between that value, that impermanent loss, and the new token. So I would say that very brand new tokens probably wouldn't immediately be in the Omnipool. But yeah, that's really the only limitation, I think.
And the second limitation is that we probably are not able to add anything that is one token, and it cannot split to some percentage because the math will not work. So that's the second part, but other than that, probably anything can be used. And we can also use Omnipool for different use cases, not just for having one Omnipool, but we could do a stablecoin Omnipool, smaller one, where you can trade just stablecoin, and it can act as an kind of an index of those. So.
Is the total number of assets in the Omnipool limited?
Technically, yes, but it's some high number that we probably won't reach. So, and if that ever happens, we are our own chain, and through governance, we can upgrade these parameters without deploying new contracts or moving liquidity. If everybody agrees that we increase the number, then yes.
We have another Omnipool question. So, will the Omnipool support synthetic assets ever, say H, Apple, or H Tesla?
There could be protocol built on top of Hydra, which will allow use this collateral, the liquidity inside Hydra, use as a collateral for the synthetic assets. So it doesn't need to be break to the like different protocol like on Mirror or something, but it could be just like application on top of it. A little bit similar, like for example, we can do like balancer pools, but on top of Hydra, basically on front end, it doesn't need to be like fundamental change or new product.
When Las Vegas meetup? So we don't know, but hopefully soon. I think US is open to like November, from November. But so you can suggest any place for a meetup. So we're thinking London next, but let's see. So feel free to suggest later. Yeah, we're not going to go into that one. The most chaos we could expect at pool launching. Question mark. Yeah. Go ahead.
Everything can happen. But can I go? There were some questions left.
We are trying to do our best for the chaos to be as slow as possible. Actually, we are waiting for audits to launch the pool, so.
There was a question, does Matigax even lift bro?
Should I answer? Yeah, I went to the gym 7 a.m. so I could be here, so yeah. And yeah, I'll be selling a crypto training program, HDX and BSX, so make sure you have some. It has the most likes though, so that's pretty good. Yeah, so maybe I'll ask, so, you know, obviously these guys are not here for pretty faces, but for the attendees, that for the bags. So maybe when are we launching liquidity mining on Basilisk? Maybe whatever. I know that he knows, but yeah, let's do it.
My answer will be disappointing. I don't have a date, but actually if we go back 2 slides, we should be seeing a roadmap, and the roadmap is showing the logical steps to get there. Oh yeah, so on the left side, we see that before launching mining, we should launch the AMM, and 3 steps even before that. So basically, I don't have a date, but I have good news. We're getting there every day closer, and I think Jakub is happy with this answer. Or you want to add something? That's it.
We have more questions. So when Snack is asking, is the omnipool liquidity vulnerable if the Oracle provides wrong price feeds? Everyone wants to answer.
So in the initial design, no, the Oracle, the omnipool liquidity is not dependent on the Oracle. Okay, so the Oracle is just providing information. At some future kind of stage, we would look at integrating that information to reduce impermanent loss. But in the initial design, we're not using it in that way. Oracle integration is tricky. You gotta be really careful to not have that kind of issue.
So when we get our oracles in Basilisk, it might be slightly easier because it's inside of the ecosystem, and we are building oracles specifically to be reliable. We are storing not just the price, but we are storing time-weighted price, and also information about the trade volume, and also information about the liquidity depth. So based on this, you can actually grade if the asset is mature enough for inclusion to the omnipool. And I think then it will be quite safe.
Yeah, so to be clear though, the dependency is just, at the moment is, you know, in order to make the governance decision, one could look at information from Basilisk, right? So that's not an automatic, like, as soon as the Oracle registers this kind of healthy pool, it gets included in the Omni pool. That's a governance decision still. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add to this as a reminder that, well, with this information to see how deep the liquidity is and how reliable the Oracle source is, with the time-weighted average, to skew the price or to change the price by 5% over, let's say, for the last hour, it would cost you to attack it by 5 for a whole hour. So the attacks, because of the time-weighted average price, the attacks become very expensive. So we have many measures as well to look back in time and specify a time range, which makes it more secure. So I think that's important to note here, that there are many layers to mitigate attacks.
And not much has been spoken about governance. And Hydra announced a pretty big thing. As well, we announced that we launched a governance, so we're, almost decentralized. We're decentralized, but we have not really talked about Snack and how the governance is going to be there. So maybe Someone wants to expand on that? No one? No, I can.
We'll want to decentralize this as soon as possible. There are few slightly more important things to do right now, but this is actually, it's a lot of things, but it shouldn't be that long. It should be a few months to finish this. And during this, if we have some more time, then we'll certainly decentralize the governance of Basilisk. So as soon as possible, technically.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because people might be asking, there's a governance on that one, and why not the other one? But it's really difficult to do all things at once. All right, guys. So, do you have any more questions? If it's a good question, I'll throw in like $100 worth of BSX. Lumir? No? Okay, never mind then. Okay, like any question that the audience or people generally fail to ask, and you would want them to be asking the question. Can you think of something? Yeah, go ahead.
I think that we could end it, and like if you want to ask any questions in private, we'll be around. So, like, ask us, stop us, and say something.
Yeah, but no BSX giveaway. Sorry. All right, guys. Thank you. So there will be more food. Thank you, the panel or whatever this is, and yeah, thank you for coming. Really lovely to have you guys, and hopefully we can chat some more over some more food. So, thank you.